started, the first commit was August 7th, 2012, Stefan's initial empty commit. The first 4 packages were argpass, text wrap, options, and example. So that's kind of cool.
I think the example package is broken.
I think it might actually be working right in this instance, but there's a very good chance it's not.
It broke very quickly.
It was broken pretty much all the time.
Nobody maintained it.
Yeah. And so 0.1 came out on February 2013, and 0.2 came out in November 2013. And this is the point we switched over to the current metadata version, somewhere around here. It's kind of hard to figure out, differentials to make. And as of yesterday, we had 339 packages that are compatible with 0.3 pre-release. But this morning I checked and there was 3 new packages that got merged in, so it's 342. I think I can check right now. The most starred packages are the following. iJulia's got the most, and Gadfly close behind, and then it kind of is a long tail dropping down. So kudos to iJulia people and Gadfly people. You're very popular. And now
everyone in top 5 deserves applause.
Yeah. Yep. So as of this morning, stars are now on the package package.julialang.org. So I thought that was a useful.
No idea genetic algorithms was this popular.
I was really shocked. I'm not quite sure when the last time I received a commit is.
Wasn't that on each end?
Yeah, it definitely was. It was definitely hyped. So, yep. And I tried to make an audio version of package systems history, but we'll see if it works. See if it doesn't like blow my speakers out. So I've been playing around with audio I/O. So this is my this is like preview of what you can do if you only have an hour.
Getting a much clearer idea.
That's the sound. That's the sound of progress. So the frequency was the average version of packages and metadata, and the amplitude was the number of packages. And that's pretty much all I know about sound. So another thing that we kind of came up with at the end of yesterday was this whole 0.2, 0.3 split. So ignoring this little glitch in package evaluator, this is a history over the last 90 days of the number of packages that support the 2 versions. The 0.3 pre is actually an overestimate because some packages are going to be deprecated when 0.3 comes out. But this is the kind of split. So people are still adding packages that work with 0.2 because they're not that different. It's mostly new features people want to make use of in 0.3. So for those who don't know, Package Evaluator is a package I wrote and I've kind of been working on for a while now that basically attempts to install every package and metadata on both the release and nightly versions of Julia, guesses their license, tries to guess their tests if they've got any, and runs them. And it kind of reports one of these 5 statuses. Either the tests exist and the tests were found and they pass, they were found and they failed. Couldn't find any tests, but the package could be loaded, so you can go using package name and nothing goes wrong. Test not found and doesn't load is the worst case. It's like you go using the package and it immediately fails. And can't test are the ones that have some sort of binary dependency that I can't satisfy in the testing machine. So recently, for a while, packages that were graphical in nature I couldn't test, but I now have a virtual X frame buffer, so even graphical packages are tested now. So it's mainly things that just have commercial dependencies or need like authentication tokens, like twitter.jl, for example. And this is the history of the last 90 days of these testing statuses. So you can actually, it's cool because you can see things happening. So this dip was when is equal changed, and those are all the packages that broke overnight. And you can see the corresponding failure rate increasing. Mostly it was just test failures though, not like catastrophic failures. This is when I started filing issues automatically in packages, and it made a difference. So I mean, you can see on this previous slide the kind of general increase in number of packages, but there isn't really a corresponding increase in this picture of packages parsing, but it really seemed to help out a lot. On this day, I filed over 100 issues automatically for any package that wasn't green, basically. And what other things? So you can see when like things break. There was a bug in like read bytes and that broke package evaluator. Over time, I've tried to exclude packages I can't test properly, so that's reducing this horrible red line. But some things still go wrong sometimes. So distributions.jl broke due to Dahua playing with sampling, and it just so happened that for about 12 hours, distributions was broke, and that was in that 12-hour slot, package evaluator ran at 1 a.m. Eastern, and so every package that uses distribution broke. But otherwise, definitely marching on. So it's 340 packages, and we're almost 200 with tests and parsing, so that's pretty encouraging. So yeah, semi-automatic issue status. Semi-automatic issues are fast. Semi-automatic because I still manually approve them. Sometimes they're like very spurious, so like numerical tolerance errors. So sometimes I like to file them because I know that they come up every few days. And it's useful for finding regressions in Julia itself. So there was a bug in sum for empty arrays that it caught because it broke a lot of packages. And there was a bug in C transpose, that the same thing. And then the output of all this feeds into package.julialang.org, which I update most days. I do it manually still because I don't quite trust it's not like nuke the page or something. And hopefully there's like social pressure created by this to like make your package green. And it seems to be working. So further discussion, having kind of got the lay of the land, there's 3 kind of areas I think that package ecosystem needs to sort of think about. The first kind of area is managing metadata. So I think there's like a philosophical point to kind of hash out, which is what kind of barrier do we put to new packages? So the spectrum is like free-for-all. So Node, NPM, their package manager is basically anyone can just push the package to their repository, to their equivalent metadata basically. Whereas CRAN is pretty open. There's a large list of explicit rules that you must satisfy for a new package. And we don't have any explicit rules really. It feels like we have some implicit rules and we try and encourage new packages. So I mean, whether we formalize it or whether we just say like, go nuts. I feel like the community is more on the curated side than the free-for-all side, but that's a discussion that probably needs to happen in the open. I know not everyone agrees. The other one is more of a practical administrative task, removing and deprecating packages. So I've done this now a couple of times. So Kino's like REPL-related packages no longer makes sense to be in metadata. So we basically put a max version of 0.3. So when 0.3 comes out, you won't even be able to install those packages. And monads.jl was made and registered, but the owner didn't want to continue developing it. It doesn't work. So it also got deprecated. But on the other hand, OpenSSL and HTTP.jl were made in the very first days of metadata and registered and never touched again. They haven't had a commit in over a year and don't work. But they're kind of like prime property in the namespace of packages. Being in metadata does seem to be some sort of stamp of quality. So I feel like it's the responsible thing to do is actually to remove it, but the owner is completely uncommunicative, and I can't get him to respond or even give me like a thumbs up to remove it. So
Is that Dirk?
yeah, who takes like the executive decision to basically just like kick someone out?
I'll do it.
Yeah. And related to this whole deprecation thing is whether we need to like come up with like a better strategy for versioning metadata itself. So we've kind of had some issues with that in the past, but lately it's fine, and it will be fine for the foreseeable future, but it's something we need to think about. Second is package discoverability, and so this is, you can approach it from a few different ways. An obvious one we need is some sort of tagged keyword system to kind of label packages so you can just find them easier. So if we have this, so we can do searching on packages, and that would be very nice. And a REPL, package.search something. But it also kind of, the more stuff we put in metadata.jl, the more awkward the repeating yourself nature of having stuff in the package and in metadata. So if we have like a big metadata file for each package in metadata, I feel like it's very repetitive, and I'm not quite sure if people are going to like that so much. There's other things like quality metrics. So I just put stars on package.julialang to hopefully show you like what is the right package. For example, we had this thing yesterday where there's like 1 million testing packages. But in reality, most people use fact check or base, and a couple of people use run tests. And as far as I can tell, no one uses the other ones. And in fact, one of the testing packages seems to use another testing package to run their tests, which does my head. So, for example, it would be nice to have another. I think you're making an aggregate metric that's kind of like how many packages depend on this package, because that's the vote of confidence in a package as well. Although it isn't perfect, because Gadfly being a canonical example of like the top of the package stack. Nothing depends on Gadfly. Everything is depended on by Gadfly. So it would get like a poor on that score. But
That just sounds like a challenge. Somebody's going to write a package.
yeah, it would be impressive. There's also the question about the role of organizations, which have been growing very organically. It just seemed to be like a fun idea and people went with it. But both organizations are kind of like a pathway into different parts of the ecosystem. And they can do more to maybe like guide people to the right packages. There's also something that's been talked about for a very long time, which is like installing a package that installs a whole lot of other packages but does nothing itself. Like a meta package, I guess. And then also discussions about what is the like core standard library, what's the standard library, do we like install things with Julia? Like some people are very into this whole idea of like bundling Julia with like anointed packages, and some people like don't like that idea very much because it's kind of picking winners, and it says things about like maintainability and yeah. Finally, package quality. So the whole issue of breaking compatibility with Julia release, I think is mostly just like a documentation thing, like giving guidelines for like how to be a responsible package owner and like best practices. Package documentation is still a mess. Like some packages have documentation, but there's no way to get it through the REPL usually. CRAN, which is the R package repository, has this vignettes, like little PDF like books basically about packages, which sometimes can be very nice. Sometimes just a list of API kind of things, so they're not very good. So anything to kind of up the quality and make it easier, lower barriers to that. And then just other things like encouraging testing, careful requires. Like a lot of people still submit packages with nothing in the requires file, even a Julia version, but I almost guarantee that some of them won't work on 0.1, say. So I feel like it's good to be prudent. Bin depths support is still too hard for most people. Travis is a bit confusing for most apps. AppVeyor is the Windows one. That's definitely too confusing for most people.
AppVeyor basically Travis for Windows.
But with a completely different configuration. So yeah. It's not if you know Travis, then you'll be fine with AppVeyor. But some people struggle with Travis, so it's kind of another barrier. And coveralls is a test coverage reporting thing, and that's quite new.
Also, Travis and AppVeyor cannot coexist, right?
So they can coexist, but they'll like override each other's like status flags on pull requests, which is weird. Yeah. Apparently GitHub is actually aware of this, and like they've got something in closed beta which will have multiple status indicators for pull requests. So they know about it. Yep. And then finally, I just want to mention about the coverage. Coverage.jl is a package I made basically like to easily add coverall support to your package. And about 10% of packages and metadata are actually using this as far as I can tell. So if you want to learn more about that, search for coverage.jl. And there's also a possibility, I think, of like a JuliaBot to like run diagnoses on packages and offer suggestions when people submit packages to metadata to boost the sort of quality. And that's all I've got. So yeah, what do people think? Yeah.
So I think by far the top priority as far as improving package quality is concerned, that the base language should do is have a way to extend the base help function.
Right.
This is by far the most difficult thing to do right now as a package. Like, what if I have a new way of doing SVD and it's like I can't overload the help data. That's just not going to be very helpful.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's by far the most important.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a million little issues and pull requests about documentation, but I've never seen anything really like game.
Mike Innes has made some progress with that.
Yeah.
His stuff is sort of the best lead so far.
Yeah.
He's spread a little thin. He's doing a lot of very cool stuff, but
Yeah.
I think I heard you mention something about if you require like fact check, do you want that as required under the test directory?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the best thing. So if there's a thing that like hasn't been widely kind of acknowledged by the package ecosystem is that a while ago, the function that got added to package called package.test. And what package.test does is it looks in your test folder for run tests.jl and will run that and report whether it succeeded or failed. But more interestingly is that it will also install any dependencies you put in test/require. So you can have testing-only dependencies. Now, I was kind of hacking this into Package Evaluator basically on a manual basis, which is not a long-term solution, but there hasn't been much like education about this new feature, and plus it only works on 0.3, so if you're testing a package on Travis with 0.2 and 0.3, you kind of have to still have this clunge together thing anyway. So I think once 0.3 comes out, it should be the mass education campaign. I'll probably file issues manually on packages where I have exceptions to say like, let's use test require now. But yeah, that's like an education thing, I think.
What are you doing now to make the tests pass?
I have like a list of exceptions that I manually curate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Okay.
Just kind of thought, we're going to think about a Python background. I use Talks a lot before I push anything anywhere, whether it's like a package for people or whether it's my own thing. It'd be kind of nice, like we were talking about package quality. If there's kind of a package that you could run, like kind of what you're running on the server already, or locally before you push anything, you try it at the end of the first thing. You just kind of run your test suite, make sure everything builds automatically. It's kind of relates to like virtual end stuff that was mentioned yesterday. Be kind of nice to have as a feature that just talked about.
Yeah, if you could like set up a little clean room and see what it'd be like if someone was about to download it.
Yeah, possibly you run multiple versions of Julia. Like people want to say like, is this run on 2 and 3 at the same time, or like, yeah.
So one of the best ways to do that is to basically temporarily export into your environment a different .julia location, like, and then proceed like that. And that's a pretty easy thing to do, but it's not obvious. That's definitely not simple. It's not smooth. Yeah.
And the other thing that you can do when creating new packages, enable Travis tests before you submit. So Travis is the clean room, download your dependencies, run it version of Julia. So run that before.
Yeah,
that's a good.
people submit packages to metadata with this Travis build failing. I would personally never merge a pull request if I see that. It's like, what do you think is going to happen if someone tries to install it? Like, it's broken. Yeah. How do you? Oh, yes.
So the issue of automatic notification. I mean, I know one of the things that you're doing is you're trying to carefully balance the fact that there are false warnings, emitted by Package Evaluator versus ensuring people get adequate notification about their broken packages. So. So right now, if I understand correctly, those warnings are just issued. Well, you make the decision whether to issue them based on day one when you first sort of see the warning.
Yes, when I pull the latest test results into my local machine, I always look at the log to see why it failed.
Right.
It only takes like a couple of minutes each day. But I mean, a lot of packages have very tight numerical tolerances.
Yeah.
But I've also seen some amazingly insane errors happen that I can't explain why they had numerical things.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm just wondering. I mean, would it be a simple thing to simply say, if the package tested green for at least 2 days, and this is the second day of testing, just automatically send an email. I mean, I actually just found out a bug in Grid yesterday that was triggered by changes in Julia's C transpose function, and I think it went 2 weeks without me even noticing that that was an issue because I hadn't rebuilt a new Julia. So. Is that good? Can we make improvements in that? So it's less burden for you.
Yeah.
But it's also the case that maybe more emails go out or something like that.
Yeah. I think there's some fiddling to do with kind of sensitivity. For example, on the website, I showed the status last night, right? I think it'd be better to show the most common status of the last 7 days. Because I feel like that's unfair to packages.
I think the automatic filing of issues has been overnight graph shows how successful it's been. I was, it's unclear why, whether beforehand whether that's going to work, but it clearly has a huge problem.
Yeah, it's been surprising. How do people feel about the closed, open nature of metadata? That's something I'm really curious
I think the
about.
only thing that we push back on is memes, right? Everything else pretty much,
Also duplicate function. We try to encourage people to
Yes.
kind of
Little.
collaborate on a single package rather than having five
but we
things.
don't push back much on quality or stuff like that.
I mean, I think
I
that's
don't know
gonna change
whether
over
we even
time.
have a measure for quality that we can consistently enforce.
One would be simply require coveralls testing of the package when it's first submitted, and that it exceed 50% or 60% or something like that.
Right. That's like the kind of the tough end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
We're still getting packages submitted that people tag as 0.01, or even lately people don't tag any version. And it's hard to tell what's a package just because someone's going to keep working on, or something someone's kind of banged out and put on there. And sometimes the total lines of code in some of these packages are very short, and it worries me because it's kind of. It worries me, but I know it doesn't worry some people at all. It's just the thing, I kind of project my own sort of more towards the curated side, but I know some people think let it go.
I think we should be sorry.
Would it be possible to have some staging so that you can test your package, have this benefit of this testing while keeping it on not necessarily available through the regular?
Right. There's this idea maybe of a wider metadata, or kind of
Yeah, so some Linux distros have the stable package archive and then the testing or experimental ones.
Because I think sometimes people register packages so people can try them. They're looking for feedback. It's so easy in Julia to install a package that isn't in metadata though, so I don't know if that's necessarily the best argument. Because you still have to kind of announce it on a mailing list for anyone to know it exists, to be honest. You add it to metadata silently, unless you're watching metadata and follow the pull requests. So, yeah.
What works on the distros though is that someone else takes a call, one of the package maintainers takes a call on the quality of something and adds it. And the only reason it goes to stable is that it doesn't break anything else. And I think pkg-eval.jl kind of, pkg.julialang.org with this. I like the fact that you have the social pressure that kind of pushes people to get better rather than have a game that really makes it difficult to get in.
Yeah, I like it a lot the way it is now. It's just a very minimal sanity check to make sure it has a reasonable name, and that's pretty much it. And it goes. I kind of like that.
That function of kind of identifying duplicate functionality, I do think is really useful. Audio I/O is a good example of when I first uploaded, when I first wanted to push metadata. There was some existing functionality that I didn't know about in this guy Howard Mao's package. So we got together, he ended up doing a pull request into Audio I/O and getting some of the features that were his, and then kind of deprecated. Well, I don't know if he deprecated his package or not, but at least we did get together and merge our functionality into one package, which I think is a good example of that working well.
Right. We've had some success with merging. So it was a try package tree. I don't know how to pronounce that data structure. Try. The Wikipedia has both. I still don't know. But that merged into data structures. It didn't need to be its own package. But we also had something recently with curve fit and line fit, and that was a mess because basically someone had taken the name curve fit, and it was the perfect name for this package, and this new package was much better, and it was awkward. So, yeah.
I think it's going to be sort of chaotic for a while. We're too young to really have anything too solidified.
Yeah.
This is the process. You must check off all of these things, but it's going to become more systematic as we go on, and that's just a judgment call. And someone's going to, at some point, we're all capable of having a sane discussion about whether a different package should have a name or not, and just resolve it.
Doug has talked before about how the R package ecosystem has kind of evolved, and it's become almost impossible to add something to CRAN now with all the
Is it
Is
CRAN,
that- is
or
that
is it
true,
just,
or-
you know, you can't do anything with our core? Or is CRAN also problematic?
Right, yeah.
Yes. CRAN is 3 people. And, you know, if you're writing something that's pure R, it's fine. If you're writing something that includes compiled code, you end up being expected to have it compile on the Solaris machine using compilers from 1992. Yeah, so I get fixed my
It seems like a little bit of a new wave of R packages that's like pure GitHub only, like
Yes.
having within class of packages. Like,
Yeah.
Part of that is because of the CRAN policies. Like if you want to push a package to CRAN, you get Brian Ripley telling you you did 60 things wrong because you didn't read, something that was written 2 days ago. It
Yeah.
actually is. It turns me off from submitting new versions of my packages.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge danger that you're gonna have some policy that is just obnoxious and pushes someone away who, maybe initially doesn't know what they're doing, and so they screw some things up, but, they figure it out in a couple of months and then become a great contributor, so.
right. I think definitely the tone needs to be like, thanks for submitting, like, here are some things you can quickly do to bump it up, and then, yeah.
That's why I like the late
Yeah.
I think it would be reasonable to require tests and to require 50% coverage of the tests. Because otherwise, nobody likes packages that just don't work, right? If you load it, and so there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for a thing that can't even pass its own test.
Well, can we make it 50% coverage of exported functionality? I think that's a big distinction. Because you might have experimental code in your package that users that want to play with it can follow, but don't have to have tests.
So this package doesn't, I think, depends on stat space, but doesn't declare it, so you can't install it if you don't have stat space installed already. Right.
Let's just take one more question.
Yeah, but there's also examples, right? So tests and examples are not the same thing. If you're just doing an experimental thing, you might want to put in an example.
Yeah. All right, let's stop. Thank you, Iain.
Thanks, everyone.